All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how we doing?
Not too bad. Christmas is in a few days. It's a good time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little cold out with the snow and the ice getting here, but no, it's a good time.
Yep. Um, so before we kick off the podcast, before we talk about the games, before the Thunder and the Cavs, Evan, as you might be aware, the city of Madison had a tragic event that happened this past week at Abundant Life Christian School. On, I believe it's the south side or the east side. Unfortunately, three people are dead from a school shooting, including the shooter herself. This obviously the Madison community is still kind of reeling from this. And obviously, you hear about school shootings that happen all the time in other states. For me personally, I just never thought it was going to happen in our own backyard. And if anybody's unaware, I work in news, so as you can imagine, it was an insane news day for us. It's I don't know if this is something we'll truly ever get over. Certainly the families won't. And today what's going on is there's a funeral going on for a 14-year-old girl who was unfortunately one of the victims of the shooting. It was a student and a teacher, so I mean, it just hurt my heart to hear that. It does have me very much worried about the youth in our country, especially since I see every day about a 15-year-old brings a gun to school, a 14-year-old brings a gun to school, and it and it's a 13-year-old it's threaten teachers and all this other stuff. So it's something that when you work in news, it's something you're kind of desensitized to. You always kind of have to expect the unexpected, but and then what makes the story even more crazy, more insane, is the fact that a 20-year-old from Carlsbad, California, who has not been publicly named yet, was also charged in connection to it, because he was the one who put the idea in this 15-year-old's head to do this. It's just it's an unfortunate tragedy. And Ever, I wanted to bring the floor over to you. What were your thoughts when you kind of initially heard it?
Yeah, I was at work and we have a TV in our office, and I mentioned it to my coworker. We had it on. It's one of those things where it's obviously it happens so often, but again, I feel like obviously it happens in Wisconsin, but I always feel like there's just not a lot that really takes place, or is when you see it be nationwide. I guess more to say, obviously, the last thing was the Waukesha parade a few years ago. That was super local over here. But yeah, no, it's an unfortunate tragedy that continues to happen, and it's going to continue to happen, which is painfully truthful. But as an ex-teacher, it's always it was crazy to think about going to work and having a risk of life or death. Which is, I feel just an insane thing to have to say, of going into a building predominantly with children, and being the person in charge of all of them in these specific situations. They're called Alice drills, and it's just the drills going through of what to do if there's a active intruder in the building, whether that they have a weapon or just a random person who shouldn't be on the property. It's just weird to think about situations like that, and how it's just become so normal in the last few years to have to go through these drills. And, like I've done my first year of school, like observation. We had a lockdown drill and I had no idea it was a drill and I wasn't in the best area. So like I full heartedly thought that it was a legit like situation. And, the worst part is I've talked with other teacher friends where a lot of these kids don't take it seriously, which makes it even more scary because now my life's on the line. And other people aren't taking it as serious, but no, it sucks and it hurts because knowing that it's just so obviously it's local, more for you in the city, but obviously it's the state that you're from, you grew up in, you were born in, and it sucks just being able to have to keep reliving the same situation. I feel like monthly. It's a painful tragedy, and it just sucks that it's going to continue to happen, and it's people just do not bat an eye at sending their children to school with the chance of them not coming home.
It's just and the other thing that breaks my heart is the fact that as much as everybody wants to like when you talk about like politicians, right? Politicians are always supposed to have your best interest at heart. And it just feels like every time one of these tragedies happens, right? It's always the same message. Praying for the families, we need to do something. And then like it's wash, rinse, repeat. Because the same stuff keeps happening and the same message keeps getting like churned out. Families don't need prayers. Okay? They do, but they don't. They need prayers from I would say they would need prayers from everybody except politicians. A prayer didn't save my child's life. Okay? Politicians at some point in time, whether you're at the state or the federal level, because there's not a lot you could be done locally. Like you could have prevented this. You could have done more to prevent this. But unfortunately, it's gonna be on their conscience for the fact that could I have done more to prevent this? And the answer is yes. Okay, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's anybody could have prevented this. Okay? Universal background checks could probably help prevent this. Teaching your child about safe gun practices, locking your guns up could help prevent this. So, look, I get it. There's a lot of fucked up people in the world, and the problem is the fucked up people are getting a lot younger. And, you used to be 45, whatever. But, now it's these kids are 14, 15 years old. So the fact that a 14 or 15-year-old has the idea to do something like this, that's a problem. That's a huge issue, especially in schools, where you wouldn't think a 14 or 15-year-old would harm a fly, and evidently they're fucking threatening to shoot up a school. They're putting out messages that they're going to do this. And again, these stories always start out the same way. It's either a dysfunctional home life, or it's they're being bullied at school. Every single one of them have started out the same way. Now, granted, you get some. Now, some of them are just now this is usually later on where it's they're way too smart, but they're a little fucked up. Mental health stuff. But again, I don't know. I don't pretend to know what goes on in people's minds. Really, all you can do is not bully people. That would be step number one. Make everybody feel included. Be nice to everybody. Because, it could help serve you down the line if you're nice to everybody. There was kind of a joke that my friend had where it's always be nice to everybody because if there was ever a situation where someone could do something like this, your life will be spared.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good joke to make, but that was a joke that was made in senior high school. But just to put a bow on this, it was a very tragic situation. I'm obviously praying for I'm praying for the families, praying for everyone that was involved, and let's just move on to the games. The Bucks faced off against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Cup Tuesday night. A pretty convincing win, 97-81. A big game from Giannis, big game from Damian Lillard. AJ Green made some big time shots. And again, heading into this game, I was like, do the Thunder have enough scoring? And that kind of answered my question. They do not. It was basically Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Hartenstein. That was their scoring, and the Bucks put clamps on them. Okay, I understand the Thunder started off the year 20-5, but again, do they have enough? Like that's gonna be the one prevailing question. Hey, like throughout the year is, do they have enough offensively to hang with some of the top tier teams? And as you saw on Tuesday night, they didn't. So, what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Oklahoma City?
Thoroughly, I know we projected, like, again, hoping the Bucks would win. I was not expecting it to be this much of a, I mean, you could say blowout, winning by 16, but like we'd even crack 100 points just in general. It was a really good defensive game, but the Bucks were really able to hold them, especially in the second half. Listening to the game, they are talking about OKC, and they average 116 points a game, and you hold them to 81 points. It was a very good second half defensively, and just being able to hold them to tough shots. But how you're talking about personal accolades, obviously the biggest one being Giannis. Now these stats don't count towards their actual career stuff, but their career stats. But Giannis almost had a 20-20-10 triple-double, one rebound off. He had 19 rebounds, 10 assists, and then threw in 26 points, 3 blocks, 2 steals. A really good game overall, offensively and defensively. But everyone felt, I feel like, a lot more confident. I really liked Andrew Jackson. I still think he should do a lot less shooting. Now, he took 6 shots, fine. I feel like he should just be a primary defender unless he can really develop a shot. Very Javon Carter-like, I know we've said in the past. But yeah, no, I felt pretty confident overall with everyone playing on the Bucks side. It really just kind of came down to the Thunder. They shot one of the worst three-point percentage games I've ever seen at 5 of 32. And they just kept shooting, and I'm like, this is what the Bucks do, but at least the Bucks make like a decent amount. They were like 2 of 20 something in the third or fourth quarter, chipping in a few near the end of the game. But Shea Gilgeous shot 8 of 24, Jalen Williams 8 of 20. And when your main scorer, your MVP caliber players shooting 8 of 24, 33% and 22% from the 3-point percentage, you're probably not going to be winning games. And your scoring is going to go a lot down. But no, it was a fun game to watch, and I'm glad it came out with a Bucks victory. Went undefeated in the NBA Cup. We were talking earlier, Darvin Ham, Taurean Prince they've never lost a NBA Cup game. So if they stay on the team, the Bucks just might never lose a cup game ever again. Yeah, no, super fun game to watch. Cool accolades, seeing some of the guys, not some of the guys, but all the guys winning about $513K, I think it is. So going to those guys who that's like more than their contract is fun to see.
Yeah, and again, this I will keep beating down the bush. At some point, like the Thunder, I feel like Shea just needs another star. Like that's a problem. It's like when you're a guy like Shea, I feel like is already a star in the making at least. If the Thunder could get another guy, like I think that will go a long way for their championship chances. Because here's the thing, Evan, we've seen teams like this before. We've seen Oklahoma City's before. Okay. The 2015 Atlanta Hawks, that would kind of ring a bell to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's a team that's full of unheralded guys who, all right, we're gonna run through this is our 1 year, we're gonna run through the regular season, and then we face off against tougher competition and we lose in like the first or second round. Okay, teams like this just don't win the championship, and they're not going to be competitive if they keep the same team. The guys that are currently with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, none of them are A's. Okay, I feel like they're like B minuses on any other team, but they're not like those aren't guys that you build around. Those aren't going to be guys who, you know, are going to be like this team's bringing me to the NBA Finals. They're not. All right, and I get it. They've started off the year extremely well. Shea shot the ball well, but like, again, Milwaukee has long defenders that could bother Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's shots. So you saw that the other night where he just didn't look as effective. They have Andre Jackson Jr. They have Giannis. They have guys that can match up really well with Oklahoma City. And as you saw in that game, there was a reason why it, like, despite their record, it just like Oklahoma City just wasn't threatening at all. It's just like, unless you're a hardcore NBA fan, I don't know if you can name half that roster. Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, like Gilgeous-Alexander, like who, like honestly,
they got the Williams, Jalen Williams.
Jalen Williams. I mean, all right, but really, who? But who are those guys? Like, if you asked a casual fan if they can name the Oklahoma City roster, I think they'd be very hard pressed to name like 7 players. I just don't. Like, I don't see it. And again, Milwaukee didn't see it either because, again, Milwaukee has what Oklahoma City doesn't, and they have 2 stars that can easily take over a game. And you saw that with Lillard, and you saw that with Giannis. And you also got contributions from Gary Trent coming off the bench, too. So it's just – I mean, it just wasn't like a threat for Oklahoma City to, like, ever win that game under any circumstances. Especially after the third, when Milwaukee – had a 26-14 advantage in the third. That's really when they won the game.
Yeah, the third quarter was horrible for the Thunder. I think they only scored 14 points and then 17 in the fourth quarter. So they're scoring pretty much, I don't know, barely what they scored in the first quarter. In the second half, yeah, it was just a horrible offensive game, and I felt like they were never really in it. Except in the first quarter when they had a 1-point lead. And then I felt like the Bucks just took over from there and just never really looked back.
And thank you for thanks for that segue, because speaking of horrible offensive games,
correct. Let's get into the next
Friday's game. 124-101. I'll admit I gotta like rewatch this, but based on what I saw, it looked like Giannis was doing everything and nobody else. Now, granted, Lillard missed the game with a strained calf. So, but however, Giannis I think scored 33, and then I don't think anybody else really did anything. Am I correct in that assumption that, like, because when I looked at the box score, it didn't look like anybody else really contributed outside of Giannis.
No, Chris had 14, Brooke had 10, but there's a 21 point or 19 point difference between the top and the second.
See, it was just not a good offensive game. And again, And again, this is the other worry too, is now that they played all these games, the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament, like, will that affect their play? And it already kind of has, because losing 124-101, and I get it. There was a lot of it's an emotional toll to travel from Vegas, having to travel all the way back and get back into the swing of the regular season. And that's the worry, especially like how Darvin Ham can attest to this. Is that when the Lakers won the in-season tournament last year, like, they actually got worse because of the toll that, playing all those games in Vegas, like, it took on their team. So, I mean, that's kind of the worry now. It's like, well, the same thing happened in Milwaukee, where it's like, play all those games. They've worked that hard to, like, win the NBA Cup, but now that they have to get back into the regular season and play regular games, it's like, well, shit. How can we get back on track here?
Yeah, this was one of those games where obviously without Lillard, that has a huge effect to it, just because, again, he's our starting point guard. He's our role player guy. He's the guy that bring the ball up the floor. But looking at the starting lineup, they scored 48 points and Giannis had 33 of those. So that's going to say a lot when you have a starting lineup of Andre Jackson Jr. and AJ Green, who did not make a field goal. 0 for 4 and 0 for 5 Again, another game, Andre Jackson Jr. should not be taking 4 3-pointers. AJ Green, I know I've mentioned in the past, he's one of those guys who just really needs to find his rhythm a lot more just because he has the shots. He gets the shots that he needs, but he's super inconsistent with his shot or with his shots going in. 0 for 3 on 3-pointers this game. Everyone had a negative plus minus in the starting lineup. The only guys to have a plus minus were the guys who played the garbage minutes near the end of the game. Very polar opposite of the last game. This game, the Bucks were never in it, never going to show that they were going to potentially tie it, take a lead at any point. This is a horrible game, but again, doesn't help with Lillard, but I still don't see them winning. Even with Lillard, they've should have had 2 wins already against the Cavs, but again, the Cavs are doing similar to what the Thunder are doing in the regular season. We'll just kind of see what happens in the playoffs, but this is just a very doozy game. But hoping that they can kind of come back tonight against the Pistons, just because that's going to need to be a for sure win, because you can't lose 2 in a row outside of the cup and potentially be almost back to 500.
No, you can't. And again, like, I don't know. It like you just almost need. The thing about this team is when one star is out, how are they going to look, right? So like when Giannis has to sit due to like a load management type injury, or like when Lillard has to sit due to like a load management type injury, how are the rest of the guys going to do? Are the rest of the guys capable of winning a game without Giannis or Lillard playing? And the answer on that Friday night was a resounding no. And that's what's concerning is Giannis and Lillard can carry the bulk of the offense, but like, can other guys step up when one of them's not in there? And that would concern me, is it just looks like Milwaukee is top heavy and the guys around them aren't enough to help them win games, because like other people have to contribute. If we have championship aspirations every year, other people have to start to contribute a little more. And I get that they did it against Tuesday night against the Thunder, but can they do it? Like, can they still do it? Can they still remain consistent? Can the offense still flow if one person is missing from that lineup? And AJ Green, like, I know he was thrust into that role, Andre Jackson Jr., but still can't lose by that bad to the Cavs. I believe they lost them 3 times this year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Cleveland has owned Milwaukee in these matchups. So I don't know. I mean, frustrating game, but I guess we could chalk it up to, well, they just came back from Vegas and they're like probably a little drained. I don't know. But I do know that, if you have one player who scores 33 and the next highest player is 14, probably not going to win. That's just me. Probably not going to win. Although I'm glad to see Chris Middleton does look a little better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that. He didn't. I don't believe he played against the Thunder the other night, did he?
No, he was out.
He was out. Okay, that's what I thought. But yeah, no. But yeah, you're not gonna win too many games. And again, Cleveland had some guys in double figures too. I believe Donovan Mitchell had 27, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Their whole starting lineup had double digits.
Yeah,
had 6 guys who scored at least 10.
Well, when you put it like that, then yeah, one team's probably gonna win convincingly. So
yeah. One of the biggest things, kind of looking at it, seeing Taurean Prince be in the starting lineup and he only takes 4 shots, but Andre Jackson Jr. is taking 5 shots, and it's like, if you're looking at your starting lineup without Damian Lillard, I would expect Taurean Prince to almost be the second leading scorer. I would feel like I'd want him to take a lot more open threes, or not necessarily just open threes, just threes in general. And to see him only take 3 attempts in a game where your other 3-point shooter is out, I feel like I'd want him kind of taking a good chunk of shots, not like an absurd amount, but more than 3. Seeing him take the least amount of shots in the starting lineup was kind of confusing, especially for him playing 25 minutes. But yeah, no, Chris Middleton again, 14 points, but took 12 attempts. But yeah, outside of Giannis and Chris, it was really just there was no help. And you see the Cavs, and it's again that very scattered. Even on their bench, you know, you have a 13, you have a 9, you have a 7. You still have some decent amount of contribution off the bench, and I just felt like the Bucks just had literally nothing, and there was really no point in trying as much near the end, just because they were again light years away of making any sort of comeback.
Okay. Now, before we end the pod, I do have some quick sad news to report. I just read that the MLB's all-time stolen base leader, Ricky Henderson, has died.
Wow.
Yeah. 60,
How old was he?
65.
Okay, I was gonna say there's no way he was that old.
Yeah, he was 65 years old. I just, again, working news, I'm on my phone once in a while just in case, but yeah, Ricky Henderson has unfortunately passed away at the age of 65. Now, granted, Evan and I were too young to watch it, but you do know everybody who's like religiously watches baseball knows about Ricky Henderson. So unfortunately, it's a tough loss for the game of baseball. One of the greatest players to ever play. So, it's not since Pete Rose where it's like, shit. 2024 is taking everybody with them. So, I don't know if you want to give some quick thoughts on that, about what you remember,
his iconic play of beating the record of him taking third base, taking the base on, in the air with the throwing up the base. It's crazy because like there's an absurd stat where it's like if you take away all his steals, like he's still like light or I don't know whatever the stat is, but there's some absurd stats where you're talking about his steals and it's like more than certain teams combined. It's anything like that. It's crazy, but no, I must have been sick or something because I did not know that he would have been in that kind of condition. But yeah, no, it's unfortunate for baseball. But it's a good way to honor his legacy of the game, kind of changing the standpoint of stealing bases and how important that is to the game and how easy he made it look. I feel like anytime he was on the base path, he was attempting to steal.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. Is it just, again, sometimes there's certain deaths that you read and it's just like, God damn.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Like, how did that? Again, they won't. I don't think they'll release how he passed away, but I hope it wasn't. I don't believe they haven't released yet how he passed away, but either way, it's obviously a sad day for the game of baseball. So, Evan, did you have any final thoughts?
We got a back-to-back game tonight, another home game at 7 against the Wizards. Sorry, I said the Pistons earlier. We got the Wizards today. That should be an automatic win, hopefully. Last game they played against the Wizards, that was very close for a while, and I don't really want to do that again, personally. And then they're back Monday, and then this week we got Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Bulls, Nets, Bulls. So hopefully, I think we can go 4-0 this week, or starting today and then going into next week. I think worst case scenario is they go 3-1, probably a loss to the Nets because they seem to just struggle against them quite often. But I guess Dennis Schroeder did get traded, so maybe that'll help offensively more now, I guess, or I guess defensively just because he's been a high scorer against them this year, but maybe that'll change now. Yeah, that's on Thursday, day after Christmas, because we don't play on Christmas. Just saying.
We got robbed of a Christmas Day match.
Got robbed of a Christmas game. I keep forgetting they don't play. And Christmas is on a Wednesday this year, which I feel like is a little weird. Christmas, I always feel like is a Saturday or Sunday kind of thing, and I keep forgetting it's on a Wednesday.
Yep. So, All right, thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we will see you either next week or heading into the new year.